Hey guys, welcome back to the Good Stuff Podcast. My name's Derek Schwinn. I'm a real estate consultant here in Marysville, Ohio with Keller Williams here with the Good Stuff Podcast. Today we are talking heating and cooling with this young man. Known him for a long time, so I'll let you introduce yourself and we can...
I'm Nick Solar, owner of Eller Sons Heating and Cooling, second generation heating and cooling company here in Marysville.
Very good. So you got the opportunity to get involved with that. So how long have you been doing it? I feel like time flies these days, so I can't even remember.
Well, it's been about 10 years.
Really?
Yeah, 10 years, 7 years full time. So, and it has gone by really fast. But it's been very enjoyable. It's a field I never knew I would get into. Mm-hmm. But, you know, God has mysterious ways of doing things, and He'll point you where you need to be.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's for sure. For sure. So what do you like about it?
Every day is different. Every day is different. I like the honest, the part to be honest with people. I hear way too many times I get called out for a second opinion on something that a different company has been out and told people, hey, you need to spend $12,000 to $15,000 for new equipment, and it ends up being a $250 repair. And that's just not, that just rubs me the wrong way. So I like to be able to, give them an honest answer, and, if we can repair it, let's fix it. If you want something new, we can do that. But what meets your budget, and, you got to be able to work with people, and it's really worked well for us. We've been growing quite a bit over the past few years since I've joined it, and everybody I bring on, that's the way I want them to operate as well. I want them to be honest with the customer, and it just seems to work really well. Mm-hmm. So,
well, and it earns the business later,
Right.
If eventually there is going to be that $12,000 repair at some point, and if you've earned that trust of...
Right. And most of the time we can do it for a lot cheaper than that as well. That's what a lot of the Columbus companies seem to throw out there is, for their pricing. And I don't know, I like to go home and be able to sleep at night comfortably. And
well, I heard one time real estate agents are ranked fairly low on the trustworthy surveys that they put out to consumers. So I understand the dishonesty of sales, and unfortunately you see it enough. I hear it with basements and different things, high ticket items that there's companies that are built around. One of the things I've heard a lot is sometimes you're paying for their marketing budget so you can see them on TV and remember to call them.
Right.
And that's where your money's going sometimes is.
Right. A lot of marketing and
the sales side of things.
TV ads. Yeah. And we work primarily by word of mouth. I'm doing this podcast here. And then we've done a radio ad with the local radio station as well. Nice. Just to sponsor their Don't Text and Drive.
Oh, cool.
So
very good. And I've seen some of your honesty posts on Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it just gets to you. You're like, man, I need to vent. I need to let this out, and so people can see it. But most of it is, most of our stuff comes from word of mouth. Mm-hmm. People that are happy with what we're doing and the way we treat people, and then they tell their friends.
And how long's the company been?
Coming up on 25 years.
25, really?
Yeah. Next year will be 25 years. So.
Very cool.
Right.
So the purpose of the three types of content I like to do is real estate and the community, and then this is more of the house related, obviously. Verges into the real estate side of things, but just try to have general conversation, introduce people to local vendors that I recommend at least, and how you can help them. We can educate them a little bit and whatnot.
Right.
So let me get my questions since I threw my phone. I forgot. I tried to get it out of the way so I ignore it.
Right. I just turned mine on silent. So.
Well, I'm back. Like I use it as a resource. Oh, I lost it. It's so weird. Oh, I wonder if it's my adapter.
It could be.
We'll mark that because I spun it around and it started working. All right. and I'll probably cut these questions out, but I'll ask them as a. All right. So you don't have to keep it real estate, folk. Like these are worded for real estate related.
Okay.
So what are some key factors that home sellers should consider when it comes to their heating and cooling system that makes their homes more attractive to buyers? So that I might go into some of the smart technology or any of that kind of nonsense, and I'll just put my plug in. We got a Nest thermostat that's less than desirable. So are there good ones?
They're good ones. I generally use Honeywell. Nests are okay, but in the HVAC industry, a lot of people do have issues with them.
Yeah.
And you see it quite a bit. So I usually stick with a Honeywell. Ecobee seems to be pretty good too. And then on the other side of things, sometimes a smart thermostat might really not save you all that much money. If it's bouncing the temperature around, up and down a lot, the money you're saving while the equipment's off, you could turn around and actually be spending that
Just kind of
that money
or maintain.
Yep. Especially on air conditioning, maintain a constant temperature, and then the equipment's not working hard to pull all that heat back out.
And probably easier on the equipment too.
Yes. So you're not you might save a couple bucks while it's letting your house warm up during the day in the summertime, but then it's just going to run constant for 4 or 5 hours.
And what's the numbers? I heard a long time ago, like I don't know if it's efficiency or the ability to get air hot is way, way, way easier than getting air cold.
Yes.
And so if you are bouncing, that's probably a lot worse on the cold side.
Yes. On the cooling side of things, it's better to maintain. And same thing if you run a heat pump. Just maintain that temperature. If you want to try to save some money on fuel, let's say you have natural gas or propane, or even fuel oil, then in the wintertime, you can set that temperature lower. Like let's say at 68, while you're there and, in the house. But when you're not there, when you're sleeping, and you can drop it down, 3 or 4 degrees. I usually try to keep it in that 3-degree window. It seems to work the best. You get a longer off time, so you're not burning while you're not there.
Okay.
But then, it's fairly easy for the equipment to bring it back up within a very reasonable amount of time.
But for like air conditioning, better just to leave it?
Better to leave it, yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. One of my favorite, I'm somewhat known for my random fun facts of useless trivia. And maybe you've heard this perspective that there's no such thing as cold.
Right. It's just absence of heat.
Yeah. I'm like,
right.
People, okay. Yeah. Usually people are like, that's stupid. Move on.
Right.
Like, makes sense.
Right.
Yeah. It's just more hot or less hot.
Yeah.
The other one, my favorite one that goes along with that is did you know caffeine doesn't give you energy? You heard that one?
I hadn't heard that one.
I believe it's called adenosine receptors in your brain. Adenosine is the chemical that's released when you're fatigued.
Okay.
And caffeine supposedly has like the same shape as adenosine, or however you say it. I'm not sure if I'm saying it correctly.
Okay.
So caffeine just blocks your receptors to feel tired. So it's funny. So now it always cracks me up when people say, I need some caffeine. I need to wake up. Well, you just need to feel less tired.
Right.
Kind of like less heat or more heat.
Right.
So that's another one you can take on. Okay, so do you ever watch like the Build Show or the Build Show? I think it's called on like Instagram. Have you ever seen some of those?
I don't believe I have.
Sometimes they'll, and I think most of it's, or a couple times I've seen venting for like bathrooms or showers or kitchens in different spots. And anyway, I can't really speak intelligently to it, but different ways of doing things. And all kinds of different like fans and pumps and what's it called? Now I'm just rambling. Those like fresh air things because houses are sealed up so much.
Right.
Like I assume that's mostly kind of the net zero houses that are trying to be more really efficient and all of that.
Right. So yeah, nowadays our houses are sealed up a lot tighter than they used to be. So what we can do is put a fresh air intake coming in on the return air side of your furnace, which is going to pull in air as it needs it to kind of build a positive pressure in the house. because you do have things that are pulling air out, like your bathroom vent fans. As they pull air out, what that does is create a negative pressure inside your house versus what it is outside. In the summertime, it's not as big, but it can, bring moisture in. In the wintertime, that's going to let that cool air from outside in as well, so versus making drafts. So if you have the fresh air intake for the air conditioner, for the furnace, that can help pressurize the house and help with leaky windows and things like that, because it's actually going to be trying to push that air that you have conditioned out on that positive, rather than letting the other kind of force its way in.
Interesting. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, it seems like there's been some developments and some of that kind of stuff that, like I said, I didn't totally understand some of the principles behind some of it, and I've heard different. There's some like goofy box that's almost like two squares.
Yeah, like a heat recovery box.
Yeah. I'm trying to understand how that works and functions was kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
So do you ever get calls from real estate agents on, hey, this is broke, like inspection report stuff?
Yeah, I do. I actually just had one yesterday that they called and like, hey, can you check this out? We need to make sure the lender wants to know, does this house actually have enough heating capability,
That's a new
for
one.
the size of the house. The house had a vent-free heater downstairs, which is what heated the whole downstairs. It used to have like a wood stove, older house, and upstairs they had like a baseboard style in the wall forced air heater. But so did a load calculation before I went out to see what they had, and knew, I'm like, okay, I need 48,000 BTUs in this house to be, to
get there, yeah.
For it to be heat, have the proper amount of heat. And we had 50, so they were okay.
Huh? I have not heard that one before.
Yep.
That's an odd. I wonder why that was triggered. Why the
USDA loan. So sometimes they'll ask for certain things, and we do go out and we'll provide an inspection for customers as well, for people that are buying the house or selling the house. Go through the furnace and check the air conditioner and stuff as well. Make sure everything's in good working order.
And done by somebody that's not trying to sell you a $12,000 new unit.
Right. Yeah.
So that's a good plug there.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was I going to say?
Yeah.
Oh, for anybody out there that might so maybe a more common thing, just an annual inspection, or hey, that's part of why I wanted to talk to you. Well, it's the end of September, but put this out in October because that's when things
start to
usually
get cool down.
Start to kick in, and this broke and whatnot. And is that a common thing, you guys?
Yeah. So we offer like a service special to cover both pieces of equipment, and we can do it depending on the temperature outside. We can do both inspections at the same time, or we'll split it up into 2 visits. And
wait for a warmer cool day.
About $178, and so that'll do a service on your furnace and a service on your air conditioner as well. Big thing, like where we're heading into the fall on the furnace side of things, we want to make sure that furnace is operating properly. Big thing, we don't want any CO coming out into the house.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be part of any inspection, because we like people to wake back up in the morning.
We had one of those, and the seller said, that's not a big deal.
No, that's kind of a big deal. Yeah.
I mean, it was the basement, so I'll give him that, but it was a finished basement.
Yeah.
Seems like something you might want to pay attention to, but
right.
Anyway. Okay, yeah. General cleaning, too. Like, one of the big things I try to push and just talk about is usually things are, when things become a problem, that's sometimes too late. I heard one time 2 minutes a day is better than 2 hours on Saturday. Just the idea that a little bit consistently is better than just having something break and having to fix it or spend a lot of time on something. So at the old house it had sat for a while vacant before we got it, and the furnace, anyway, went through a whole ordeal trying to get the furnace on because the furnace wouldn't work, and the company that came out for propane said the furnace has to be checked and make sure it's working and not leaking.
Right.
But the HVAC company back then wouldn't wouldn't do anything without propane. And anyway, so I
Right.
went through this really weird. It's one of the reasons I'm not a big advocate of home warranties, because sometimes they.
Sometimes their company policies don't make sense.
Yeah, and I eventually talked to the president of the company, and he kind of, he
Right.
didn't give me any help. Oh my goodness. So anyway, there are some good ones, but some of
Right.
them are pretty bad, just like anything else.
Yeah.
But anyway, went through this whole ordeal trying to get it taken care of, and then finally, somebody just went around their boss and just took care of it. But at the time, it just needed blown off.
out.
Yeah.
Cleaned out.
And I didn't really think there was much mechanical, like things just move, but the sensors and anyway, so
Right.
especially, and that was 2010, so things have only
Right.
moved along since then, and so I think things, and obviously most places are cleaner than making a house sitting empty, but
Right.
the preventative maintenance things that people can do, or you guys can come out and, I mean, in those service inspections, I assume that's some of the stuff you guys do, but
Yeah. So I don't recommend getting into the furnace itself, on an everyday customer, because if you do mess something up, some of the parts can be expensive.
Mm-hmm.
There are electrical in there, there's gas in there, and those two we don't want to mix and spark and things like that. But changing your furnace filters, just because it says it's a 90-day filter, does not mean it's going to last 90 days. A lot of times I like to stick with a cheaper style filter, maybe like on the MERV rating, which is rated how much they filter out.
Mm-hmm.
An 8 MERV rating does most of the time pretty well on a 1-inch wide filter. If you got the 4-inch wide filter up to like an 11, because they've got more surface area to let air through.
Keep the flow.
But yeah, a lot of times what we see is people are like, oh, well, it's a 6-month filter, or it's a 3-month filter. I changed it 3 months ago, and you pull it out and it's just caked with dirt and debris, and what that's doing is starving the air on the furnace.
Less efficient, more cost.
Yep, less efficient. That furnace is going to run hotter, which is going to put more wear and tear on your heat exchanger, can cause cracks, which then leads to carbon monoxide coming into your house. And
part of the reason I think preventative maintenance and these kind of things are so important is because they work and you don't pay attention to them.
Right.
And so you think, oh, they're great. And then especially at our phase of life with kids and things running, and 10
Right.
years can go by. And I was thinking of something the other day that's 3 years ago, and
Right.
it feels like it was yesterday. And it's really easy for those kind of things to just be out of
Slip
sight,
by,
out of mind.
yes.
And when a mountain can be made out of a molehill because you forgot to change the filter, and
Right.
the mountain that can be made out of it is pretty dangerous.
Right.
So just the importance of those kind of things.
Right.
So then the next question, what's your feeling? And I don't know if I have an opinion on the duct cleaning.
Okay. So we offer duct cleaning. It is, we only do it like in the fall and spring season. And through winter, I cut it off for the summertime frame because we're too busy with the air conditioning. But as long as the ducts are sealed, it'll do a really good job. If you have duct board, which is basically insulation with the foam, not with the foil on the outside of it, my personal opinion is they hold that dirt, and it's not going to come clean very well. Same thing like with a mobile home. If you have a mobile home setup, those don't clean very well either. I can't speak to what Stanley Steamer might do with their different setup, but with ours, I usually try to stick with the conventional style systems with the metal duct.
Yeah. Well, I mean, fiberboard, or that's not even really fiber. Well, I guess fiberboard.
Yeah, basically insulation.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Right.
I was thinking
Fiberglass,
There's a styrofoam blowing around out there, so I was thinking foam in my head. But yeah, the fiber, you probably could damage it potentially.
You could, yeah. So they have all kinds of things to clean the ducts with. They've got whips and things that kind of whip around to bang the dust loose. What we do, we'll cover the air filter to split the system from the return side to the supply side. The return side is the side that's always dirty. because it's pulling everything
Oh,
in, and
so
then your
yeah.
filter kind of catches everything from the supply side out. Like on the supply side of things, like if you think your vents are dirty, it's probably right there at the vent itself. Where kids drop toys and things like that in there.
Yeah, all the stuff gets pushed into it.
Type of stuff. But yeah, we've got a system that has a HEPA filter in it, and a pre-filter, and a secondary filter. It's like a big vacuum cleaner that we will hook up to the ductwork downstairs. We'll close off all the vents, and seal all the vents off, and go one by one with compressed air. We've got a compressor in the truck, and run down through the vents with like a cutter head on the end of it, end of the whip, and that air blasting out.
So you'll feed I assume, but just to illustrate, you'll send something down through the ductwork, and a whip will kind of.
It's I use the one that's air. So instead of a whip whipping around there, this one's solid air with little holes that spray out.
So almost like a power washer or pressure washer.
Kind of like a power washer, pressure washer type deal, to blast that stuff loose.
And then that big vacuum.
The big vacuum pulls everything back towards the furnace and collects everything to get everything out. And we've had some pretty dirty houses.
I can imagine. Well, the history of houses and spring cleaning came from when you had fuel oil or whatever the dirtier fuels you used back in the day. Soot was everywhere. So I went to a house not too long ago that had I don't know what it was, but it was probably about 100 years old, and I'm sure it burned. I mean, it was just coal.
Was it old coal stove?
Yeah, I don't know if I got a picture of it anymore, but yeah, it was the oldest one I've ever seen.
Right.
It was all galvanized, like insulated. Looked like insulated, like ICP or those insulated SIP panels or whatever.
Yeah.
But so it was like galvanized metal, but insulation in it. But it was kind of it almost looked like a ceramic oven.
Right, like big ceramic. Like you're like, how did they even get this in here?
Yeah. Right? So I don't know if they built it down there, but yeah,
it's possible. We were on one that was built in the 20s, according to the build date, and the guy's like, "Yeah, my dad moved it here in 1954." Like as they were putting an addition on the house, his dad bought it from his uncle, and they moved it and put it in there, and then put the floor over. And they were still using it and still using coal. So
really,
they were
Where do you even get coal these days?
You're gonna have to have it trucked in.
Yeah,
but he had 2 tons of coal. He was like, "Oh, that'll last us a couple years." So I'm like, okay, but
and it's probably pretty cheap, I would think.
I couldn't answer to that, but I believe they do sell it in like 40-pound bags, like they do pellets for a pellet stove.
Just like that. Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But
cool. All right, what's our next question here? We kind of talked about. So the next prompt I've got is energy efficiency. What are your top suggestions on cost? Well, other than what you already said, for saving some money on your system.
Okay, so on a system that I like to recommend, I do American Standard equipment, which is same thing as Trane. I like to stick with we've got a 95% efficient line that's still single stage. And so that's the line I sell most of the time on the furnace side of things. Because you start to get into the 2-stage, they are nice, they're efficient, but really you're only getting like 1% more efficiency out of it, because they're 97% or 98. But I'm looking at it long term is, when you're outside of your window for warranty, I know those parts are most of the time double.
So I'm not familiar with this 2-stage. What's the big difference?
So on a 2-stage furnace, it can run at 100%, or most of them drop down to about 60% on that. So on a warmer day, that it's going to run at 100,000 BTU. Furnace will run at 60,000 BTUs, and most of the time that's enough to heat your house. Because when your furnace is sized, it's sized for about 5 degrees outside. Up here in Ohio. So that 100,000 BTUs is what you need to heat your house at 5 degrees outside temperature to keep your inside house at 72 on most of calculations.
Interesting.
On the air conditioner side of things, I like to stick with like the 15 SEER equipment, kind of again right there in the middle of the road. We're still, it's still a simple product as far as I like to say. We don't have a lot of extra electronics in it.
Stuff to go wrong.
To go wrong.
Yeah, for sure.
They do have some really nice variable speed equipment out now. That they can adjust, and it's kind of like they're going to adjust, but they want to run all the time. They kind of want to find that plateau point of exactly how much energy, how much you're cooling or heating your house needs, and then they kind of run constant at that pace. And that's for comfort, but they also have a pretty high price tag as well too.
Yeah. Like most things these days, you get a little bell or whistle, and
right,
the price just goes up.
It does.
And obviously, you already said changing your filters. If you have a dirty filter, it's going to starve your system of air, and it's going to be less efficient.
Yeah.
And being able to adjust your thermostat during
the day, yeah.
Well, I keep going back and forth. Am I talking about, is it heating or is it hot outside? Which
right.
Trying to be clear in my dialogue. But just that when it's cold out, keep your thermostat set at a constant temperature, and when it's hot, or when it's cold and you're heating, you can have that 3-degree variance and help you out a little bit.
Yeah.
Good deal. So, just for maybe a piece of trivia in the future, the philosophy in how you do a new build install and where the vents go and any of that any tidbits on?
Well.
Or is this too boring to share with anybody? I like to learn it.
I like to kind of go with the classic style of you try to keep them at your hot spots or your cold spots, which would be like your windows kind of close to a door on the outside of the house for your supplies coming out. I like my returns to be in the center of the house.
In the middle.
And most of these new builders, they keep it that way too. Some of these big box builders have got engineers that have signed off that said, hey, this works, and they've got the supplies and the returns all kind of towards the inside of the house. And we usually get a complaint about, hey, my upstairs bedroom is either hot in the summer or cold in the winter, and they're wondering why. What's wrong with my brand new house and system? And well,
common sense.
Yeah,
is what you respond with.
When we're blowing our conditioned air out, 3 feet inside the doorway, and your return's in the hallway, that air's coming right out and then going in the hallway. The hallway feels great, and then it gets right back into the furnace because it's pulled right down through the return. And
you wouldn't say that has anything to do with efficiency and where the ductwork goes, would you, in the cost of building?
I would say somebody's watching their numbers versus watching what they should be giving their customer.
You mean quality?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's what you get. And
right.
It is what it is.
I see it in a lot of and it's the new build houses.
Yep.
I won't mention any
the production
companies. Yeah.
And there's there's a lot of them that have been around for quite a few years here in town now, and there's been a variety of consistent issues with them, but that's what you get with production builds and whatnot. It's hard to keep the consistency of, and obviously there's an unprompted topic. Affordability with housing. Any comments on that as far as being in the kind of building construction industry, and thoughts on costs?
I think that there's a lot of margin on the new houses that we could probably be helping people out with, but
so one you might have maybe a stronger feeling on. I don't know exactly what, and if there is an exact number, but there's 2 different times I heard this statistic. One was from a builder association that said $92,000 in a new build, not in an expensive or a cheap one, but about $92,000 was for regulatory fees, for permits, for all of that kind of stuff. And I don't know if that's the UL rating on the furnace, and it's the EPA on the insulation that's like how deep they went into digging to get these numbers. But the second time I heard it, it was anywhere from 100 to 200, or a third of the price was in that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I think if there's truth to that,
right,
it's impossible to have an affordable new build. And at
right.
the same time, I think the other caveat that I've put into this conversation in the past is we're not in Uganda where you're worried if your house is going to catch fire. Like we have so I think at the same time, there's a cost of the stability, and because obviously even the houses that might have some deficiencies in what we just talked about are still pretty good compared to the most of the world and whatnot.
Oh yeah.
And so
yes.
I think it's this interesting balance of in general we've got a good product, but now it's unaffordable.
Right. Yeah, we did a house maybe 4 years ago, northern part of Marion. Mm-hmm. It was a brand new build, Amish built. And I asked the guy, like the homeowner did do his own, like he had to take care of the electric and the plumbing on the house. And it was like a 1,750 square foot ranch with a full basement. The Amish guy contacted us to do on the affordable housing thing, the house. We did a house up in Marion County about 4 or 5 years ago that was Amish built. First off, they were incredibly fast, especially for a stick built, and they didn't use any power equipment. But at the end of the job, when we were talking with the homeowner, I asked him what he had in the house, and it's like a 1,700 square foot ranch, 3-bedroom, full basement. Was not a finished basement, front porch and back porch, and he had $140,000 in the whole build. That was paying the Amish, which the Amish paid, or Mennonite, I suppose. They paid us out of that as well, and then he took care of the electrical and the plumbing in the house, and it had hardwood floors and oak cabinets that the Amish did.
Is this with septic?
The septic and well were already on the property.
So that's not with the property.
Right.
Okay.
So what they had a trailer that was 50 years old that they had there, that they moved out and then built a house on the same property. But I'm like, okay, so let's say you got 10 to 15 in a well and 25 for septic, give or take. Mm-hmm.
So
he's in it at $200,000. I'm like, that's pretty affordable, especially in today's standards and with the quality of the house.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, usually that's half.
Right.
Usually it's double that.
I know. I think I've heard $385 is what the average selling price in Marysville.
So usually I'll look at like the last 30 days just to kind of get a pulse on right now. And I don't think I looked this morning. Yesterday it was 330.
Okay. So kind of bouncing back down.
A lot of times, like at chamber and economic development stuff meetings I've been to, they talk about Union County numbers, but that talks about Jerome Township. And I don't know about you, but where we're at right now is not far from Jerome Township. Yeah. So comparing where we're at, where we live, to Jerome Township has no bearing.
Right.
So how you look at Marysville, 43040, and that's more than that. So
gotcha.
Yeah, you might be getting closer to 400 if you throw all that in there, but
right.
It's apples and oranges.
Yeah.
Or at least that's the way I want to look at it.
Yeah, I'll be with you there.
Yeah, well, and especially if you go another, I don't know what county lines, another
10, 15 miles, maybe.
You go another 5 or 10 miles up there, and it's even different. Yeah, more of a different price. But so I, hopefully that gets changed, or hopefully there's some. Well, this is a whole bigger topic to me, because when I go to these economic development things, talking about growth and why we need to grow and how we're growing and all of these things, a lot of times you hear stories from people leaving other places to come here.
Right.
So does that just mean there's empty houses there that everybody, because from 2010 to 2020, Central Ohio, so Franklin and the surrounding counties, grew by 235,000 people. The remaining 77 counties and the rest of Ohio grew by 35,000.
Right.
Now it might be even the other way, that it's declining, like those numbers. So anyway, 7/8 of the country, or 7/8 of the state is growing pretty rapidly, and the rest is just kind of growing a little bit. And so anyway, so are there houses that are just being abandoned and all of, so sometimes I wonder if there's just going to be this shift of, oh, wait a minute, we're going down to, Central Ohio. Well, that's just too darn expensive. I'm going to go, and everybody's just going to go back, or I don't know what's going to happen. But
I know, I mean, talking with a lot of people, our customers, a lot of people are coming out of Columbus and moving out. So yeah, I don't know what the housing situation's going in Columbus, but definitely seems like everything around here is moving pretty quick.
And then I've heard of people leaving here to go to like Logan County, or Champaign,
because it's too expensive for the people that have grown up here.
I mean, not recently, but there for a while when we were at that prime age of a lot of the people we knew from school, growing up with, that I'm not paying that for that house. And unfortunately, a lot of them, or some of them, thought, oh, it'll go back down.
Yeah.
It significantly went the other way.
Yeah.
And so it's just, which, in hindsight, duh.
Right.
Like, expecting that it wasn't going to grow. I mean, in 2008, I remember going to college and coming back and just seeing
the change.
Well, and there was quite a few development spots that were just empty and had signs because a lot of this growth was going to happen then and just didn't because of that.
Right.
So anyway, and I talking to Steve Stolte last or a couple podcasts ago, he said they he can remember conversations in the 90s about the growth that, prepping for it. So it's been in the pipeline for a long time. Doesn't mean I like it.
Right.
But,
I do enjoy my small town, Marysville, that I grew up in, but it's definitely a little different now. But
yeah. Is it Clint Black? Or what's that? I forget who sings the only thing that stays the same is everything changes.
Right, everything changes. Yeah, I think that could be Clint Black.
I feel like it. I can't remember. But that's accurate. All right, we're 40 minutes in. I don't know if anybody's going to listen to more than that. So.
Okay. All right, sounds good, Derek. Thanks.
Good spot to stop. Thank you. Thanks for coming in. Obviously, I recommend this guy. Give him a call. He'll take care of you and anybody any needs you've got. If you would like to hang out and have a conversation with me and talk about whatever you do, if it's housing related, real estate, about the community, I'd love to sit down and talk with you. Like this video if you do, subscribe if you haven't, comment, follow, all of this stuff. And if I can ever help you find a house you all love, sell when you don't, or just help you love where you live a little bit more, here to do that. Until next time, take care.
Take care.